A couple days ago I mentioned that my Kabbalistic magic and how I've been trained was based on a story of Samson and Solomon. Now, for those of you who don't know, Solomon was a famous magician. Later, Hebrew tradition turned him into a high priest, which is not correct. He stood as a magician long before the Hebrew tradition got a hold of him. And Samson was when I say older, I mean older than the Bible. Samson was the archetype for the strongman of those particular regions that now I guess you'd call them the Middle East, especially what is now Israel and was Canaan, or you'd call them the Canaanites. And even further back then, Samson and Solomon were actually at one point a paired friendship, a lot like Loki and Thor, where Samson embodied the highest qualities of a man in the way that is physical, so that he had untold, unbound, and immeasurable strength, and a powerful will and drive to succeed in the realm of the physical world. Solomon, who didn't possess that level of physicality, possessed a will and an intellect, and also a magical understanding. What's interesting is they both possessed an indomitable will, but each other's weakness was each other's strength. So if you look at the stories of Thor and Loki, both tend to have that. Now, as they were retranscribed by Christian scribes and by a couple noted transcribers from their original stories and original writings, Loki became far more antagonistic, and a lot of his personal stories were erased. And Thor, they really tried to turn him into a dullard and just sort of a big bully. However, that is just not the case, and thankfully I am in possession of stories that are not in the great poetic Eddas that have basically been watered down so that the real true meanings are very confusing, as well as the stories of Samson and Solomon, which are not stories that I'm going to release quite yet. They are initiation-based and quite sacred stories, and the last thing I want to do is give them out and let some, know-nothing, power-hungry, neo-pagan group steal them and then try to claim that they are from the same lineage. What I want to talk today about is, since knowing your divinity, knowing that any form of belief that tells you that you are incomplete, that you need to be saved, that, all the stuff I said in getting rid of your reptilian programming, knowing that all that is true, I want to now introduce the idea that anything is possible. So knowing that you're divine, okay, knowing that you are a direct link to the prime creator, to whatever God you want to call it, and knowing that God only wants you to exhibit and discover and live your highest potential. Now it's time for you to begin to understand the mysteries of the strongman, so that I can then pass on to you the mysteries of the magician. So this is really how we begin the process of building a magician who is both a strong man in the physical and in the physical world with his sphere of influence, on top of being a strong man in the mind and in the magical knowledge. This is the complete individual that the stories of Samson and Solomon embodied. You have a lot of them. You have, there's just tons, and you can find these pairings wherever you go. And in almost every single culture, they have the strong mind linked with the strong body, and they're generally two different personalities that get together and work together and solve problems together using each other's unique strengths. So in the story of Atlas, a lot of people incorrectly think that Atlas holds up the world. It's not the world that he holds on his shoulders. It's the sky sphere, which is the celestial world. He is on the physical world, holding on his back the entire celestial sphere. So that means all the constellations, all the what could be, and all the dreams and the weight of all the astrological influences and planetary influences. He holds. He is the connector between the celestial realm and the physical realm. Now below him is the underworld, and that's held by something else. But it is Samson, the strong man of the Titans, that holds up the celestial sphere. It's a very interesting thing. Let me also bring in the fact that one of the great moon gods, rare that you have a moon god, but one of the great moon gods was a Babylonian deity who was also worshipped before Babylon and in surrounding areas, whose name is Sin, S-I-N. Actually, I really think this is where we get the word sin from, as a way to demonize this particular deity. He was a very heavily muscled deity, and his connection with physical strength really kind of throws people off, because, well, he's like a moon deity, so it's more magic, right? It's like, what is physicality? What is a strong male doing as a moon god? Well, here's the real thing. As you develop into the archetype of the Samson, the strong man, you begin to learn that the lunar sphere, or in Kabbalicism is called Yesod. What's interesting is if you look at the tree of life, there are many interesting things, I'm going to say that a lot. If you look at the tree of life, the glyph, the connecting point between Malkuth, which is the physical world, the kingdom, and Yesod is called the foundation. That is where the strongman energy lies. It is the foundation between the astral realm and the physical realm. The magician lies in above that. Okay? That's not to say that it is above the strongman, because without the strongman, it's not possible. Okay? And without the magician, the strongman then is not possible. Both are interdependent of each other. And at the same time, both depend on each other. So you learn to work both independently, however, both are in a symbiotic relationship with one another. So what we're talking about here is the astral world is a flexible, malleable substance that is viewed as sort of a gloomy, splendorous darkness. Like the moon, which is why the moon is its planetary ruler, the astral world doesn't have any of its own quote-unquote light. The sun must reflect on the moon for the moon to reflect the sun's light and give you an idea of what the moon looks like. The astral world is reflective. That's why magical mirrors, scrying pools, all these things are very in touch with the astral world. So when you visit the astral world, your inner light source, your inner sun, which is your higher self, is the light that the astral world reflects back. And you get to see what you are creating in the astral world. This means that the astral world is being shaped by what your higher self and your sustained thoughts tell it. That's a very, very interesting point. So, you are in control of the astral world, whether or not you know it. And you either benefit from it or you suffer from it. But this is the secret. So, what does the strongman have to do with this? The strongman, Samson, is the one that has the power and strength of will and determination to use his hands to shape the astral world like a sculptor would a piece of clay. Okay? This is the interesting thing. So he builds this astral world. Okay? He uses the mind of the magician and the other tools that exist higher in the Kabbalistic tree, to shape that world. But it is the strength and will of the strong man that does it. Thus, Sin, the moon god. Okay? Now, not only does he have to, or you have to shape the astral world to your true desires, you have to have the strength to face what it is that you've created in the process. And one of the hardest things one could look at is to do a real long look in the mirror and continually ask, who am I? You're not going to love the answers you hear back. But it's important because eventually you will be called out on it anyways, and the only way that you can ever change what you don't like about you is to face it and then have the strength to stick with it and change it. The same thing happens on the astral world. You will see that you are building the instrument of your own destruction. That's a hard thing for most people to understand. You are building your own prison. You are building the instrument of your own destruction. You are self-sabotaging yourself from your own greatness. And you will see those mechanisms that you've created on the astral realm if you really look for them. This is why Christianity and so many of the big religions are so self-defeating. Because you are building your own self-defeat. You are building a world that says, I need someone else to save me. I'm worthless. So I'm going to come back with part 2 on it, but I just want that as a primer so we can continue on.